Nick Hanne, kia ora. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good day, Andrew. Sorry, you've got the B team here.
No, there's an upgrade as far as I'm concerned. And get well soon, Jonathan. Well, today talking local government, and hey, we all get the opportunity, of course, later this year to exercise our free speech in voting for representatives at local government. This is also a space that the Free Speech Union has been particularly busy in at the moment, including, let's kick off with Taupō, teaching local government how to do better in the free speech realm.
Yeah, well, that's right. We had the opportunity to go down to Taupō about 6 weeks or 7 weeks ago and present to council in a session with all the elected representatives there and quite a few members of the public and some of the council staff. And that was one of these sort of conditions that we'd actually, really placed on the council, because there had been, many people may recall, a lot of controversy around Julian Batchelor and his, stock co-governance tour that he was doing. And he was denied the opportunity to use a council venue, despite, members of the public being perfectly entitled to do so. And the council stopped him, believing that there was a health and safety, risk in doing so, perhaps because they believed counter-protesters would get involved. So this was our opportunity, a good year and a half later, to actually come before council and talk to them about the importance of free speech and why they have not just a moral obligation, but actually a sort of a statutory obligation to ensure they're upholding free speech rights.
I mean, this is a good sign, actually. Politicians and public servants saying, you know what, we don't know it all. Let's bring on the experts on this one, having the humility to do that, even if it was part of a negotiation, a good sign, and we challenge all other local bodies and councils to do the same in that regard. Having said that, though, Canterbury seems to be ahead of the game in this regard, voting down some regulations that could have restricted free speech.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting story. And I mean, with Taupō, we've had the opportunity to actually help them with developing a free speech policy.
Yep.
But of course, that was us going in there and really having to push the matter. In the case of Environment Canterbury, however, the councillors elected to those positions have very strongly and very adamantly pushed back on a move by council staff to impose speech restrictions on elected representatives.
Wow.
And it's a pretty draconian Orwellian, move. And in fact, one of their councillors, in pushing back on this move, actually did compare it to 1984 and George Orwell's dystopian vision of the future, which unfortunately, in small and but growing ways, we've been seeing, come to fruition in our own time. So we're really stoked to see just this concerted, and very robust push back against this type of interference by council staff.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to the old cliched, safety issues. People need to be safe. And there's always supposed to be a balance between safety and expression. Well, look, elected councillors have been voted in to do this job.
Yeah.
They've been voted in to represent the interests and concerns of the people in their district. And if they're not allowed to do that, if they're not given a free hand to do that, then what we have is bureaucrats basically running the show.
Yeah.
And we, I'm reminded very much that this week we'll be celebrating 80 years since the end of World War II in Europe. VE Day on the 8th of May. What have we done, though, with that freedom? And are we actually taking it for granted, or are we valuing it? And are we using our right to speak freely, which was secured by our grandfathers and our grandmothers and our great grandfathers and great grandmothers, all those years ago?
Yeah.
Or have we lost sight here of what we've been, left with our inheritance in this democratic society? So yeah, I think it's a very heartening example.
And I think a great example of saying, hey, actually bureaucracy doesn't veto democracy.
Absolutely.
And that actually we've got an opportunity to make that count, because free speech is all very well, but if we sit on our hands on this one, if we go, free speech, I'm in favour of free speech, but we don't engage with the democratic process, if we don't even vote in the up-and-coming local body elections, then honestly, Nick, I think we're part of the problem in that regard.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And I think one of the key things that people have to keep remembering is that the managerialism, the bureaucracy is there to help keep the wheels turning, but it is not there to make decisions for everybody else, especially the key decisions. Yeah, they can deal with the details, but it's in service of the democratic wishes of people who vote their elected representatives in.
Yeah.
And we've got to remind people of that, which is also why we're concerned about institutional neutrality, across a whole lot of different sectors.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's at the end of the day, it's the elected officials that get to decide and vote on the budgets for the bureaucratic departments. And hey, we do need backroom people. This is not an us versus them. There's some very good staff at a local body level in that regard. Having said that, though, an opportunity for people themselves to be a part of local boards, areas of local governance. I suppose that's the next step. Yes, we should be voting in our local body elections, but for people to prayerfully consider putting their hand up and becoming a part of that, not necessarily through the local elections, but I understand that there are roles are becoming available on governing boards, for example, that need some free speech representation.
Absolutely. So, everything from education to health, local government, we're really saying to people around this country, look, get out there and use your voice, get yourself, elected onto boards, onto councils, and be involved in the institutions that are necessary for our civil society to flourish.
Yeah.
If we sit back and we stay silent, it ain't going to change anything. We're not going to get there simply by expressing our views on social media. You've got to get stuck in. You've got to get into these places. And so we've been helping facilitate. And by that, I mean, we're not trying to orchestrate, but we're simply encouraging people, get out there. And we're pointing out the opportunities. We're saying, look, there are, board seats coming up that will be open for members of the public to get involved. And if they can get themselves appointed, that's fantastic. And that allows them to have a say.
Yeah. And honestly, talking back to your point beforehand, the people have fought and continue to fight for our free speech rights, and it's important to use them to an extent. What is the point of having free speech if you're not using your voice?
Yeah, exactly. So, we just want people to know if they want to make a difference, then they've got to be heard, even if it's just getting on the school board, or if it's running for, the teaching council, and getting appointed to the teaching council and having a say on our education system. It could be all sorts of different roles. But look at our website and you'll see what we're doing in that space right now. And we're being very open and transparent about this. We want people to know that we're pushing for it.
And hey, honestly, I know not being on a board isn't everybody's cup of tea, and not everybody's got the interest or the capacity to do that. But actually, supporting the work of the Free Speech Union is something that everybody's able to do. I would encourage people to subscribe to the mailing list there, actually, to stay informed, whether it is perhaps taking a position in a local governance board or just staying informed and prayerfully supporting the work of FSU. FSU.nz, of course, the place to go for more of that. Nick, thanks for stepping up at short notice. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.